What's up, everybody? It's K4K Crypto here. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. I've been busy with friends and family for the past couple of weeks, trying to get into the holiday spirit, still live my life. Crypto's down, still a thing. We're going through the bear market, but I got something cool to talk to you guys about. I still think HEX is amazing. We already knew this kind of thing was going to happen. We all hoped the HEX would overperform the bear market. I mean, if you think about it, it actually has, because when you go up so high, you would expect it to come back even more. Like if something goes up 100x and goes down 90%, you still are up 10x, which beats the stock market, beats gold, beats real estate. And a lot of people don't understand that when they're outside of crypto, or if they just don't know the raw details, the raw numbers. And so we went up 10,000x, and we're still up hundreds of x, even after down 96%. Some things that went up as much as we are still up, think about it this way. So if things are up, some things that went up only as high as we're still up after a 96% drop, they dropped a lot. Like they dropped from, say we're up 500x after we went up 10,000x, dropped 95. Things that did also go up 500x, they're down 90%. So they're only up 50x instead, whereas we're still up hundreds of x. So that's how you can see that HEX is actually overperformed, even though everyone's looking at a red chart and going, ooh, look, it got wrecked. They just don't understand the minutia of the details, I guess. And sorry if I coughed during the video. Hopefully my editor will, make a montage of coughs at the end or something. But I've been dealing with the cough for 2 weeks. Throat just tickles. Doesn't hurt or anything. I just cough. So yeah, if you see my eyes water up or anything, it's because I got a cough. And talking activates it. Anyway, this video is going to be about the HEX staking ladder NFT tool that I would like to see developed. And I've kind of come up with most of the idea for it, or groundwork or concept. And I have a little kind of the idea of the benefits of it, so people can start to spread this idea. Maybe we can get some of the HEX developers to start working on something like this during the bear market, because it'd be great to have as a tool in the future. I don't think it would ever get old. It's just a perpetual personalized HEX staking ladder that is just a tool that anyone can use to put a bunch of HEX in, and it'll generate an NFT that represents all of those stakes that it would make for a ladder. So for example, a HEX ladder, if you don't know what that is where you do, several years in advance, but some, say you have a million HEX and you want to split it up over 10 years, you might do 100,000 for 1 year, is a 1 year stake. 100,000 of that HEX out of a million is for a 2 year stake, and then a 3 year stake, and then a 4 year stake, 5 year stake, 7 year, 8, 9, 10. And why would you do that? Well, a lot of people don't want to wait a full 10 years for their investment to finally pay off, right? And so what you can do is minimize, some of your risk throughout those years by doing some earlier stakes and getting a little bit less yield, because everybody knows in HEX, you make 20% more yield, more interest or yield for every extra year you lock up. And so you actually would get more yield if you did all of it for 10 years. But a lot of people can't wait that long. And so if you want to see some return on investment earlier, you can split that up into a staking ladder. And the benefits of that is you get more principal and yield earlier, even though it's going to be less than if you did it all at, let's say, for 10 years. But it gives you, more liquidity and versatility. If some other opportunity comes up within those 10 years, you'll have more capital at the ready to deploy, because you didn't just put it all out for 10 years. And we won't know what the best decision was until out 10 years. So it's usually good to do these laddered stakes, spread your capital out over these years. You get a little bit less yield each year, but the benefit of this is the way you're supposed to use HEX is as follows. If you stake it for, say you're doing a staking ladder, that's the best way to use HEX. Once you end your first year stake and you collect that yield, whatever you don't need, say you have money in the bank, you don't need to go spend all that money in the bank at once, right? You just spend what you need. And so if you kind of have an idea for what you need in whatever time frame, whatever your plans or future plans are, you only need a certain amount of that. So when your first stake comes out, what you should do, and what a lot of people I've talked with have done in HEX from the beginning, Dollar Cost Crypto came up with this from the banking industry with the CD ladders. It's what they do. You roll whatever you don't need from your first year stake out to the max, past a year, past your your longest stake. What ends up happening is you have this perpetual motion of you're creating the longest stake possible, which generates the most yield. Remember, if you could do all of it at 10 years, that'd be the best. So what this does is it kind of enables you to have this rolling perpetual best yield stakes out into the future, while also giving yourself liquidity and still some yield in the earlier years. So your first stake, you take some yield out, then you take the rest and you push it out as far as possible that you're comfortable with, do whatever you want. Maybe you're only doing a 5-year plan. 5 years of 1-year stakes. So one's for 1 year, one's for 2 years, one's for 3, one's for 4, one's for 5. So that 5 years is going to pay way more interest than your first year one. But once that first year comes around, you take some yield off. The rest you put out for 6 years. Or I guess after that first year, 1 year had gone by. So then you just do 5 years again. And so then you're getting these better yields later. And eventually what happens is, the next year comes by, that's a 2-year stake. And that allows you to get even more yield than if you were to just do perpetual 1 years, because that's just the smallest amount of yield you can get in HEX, basically, is doing perpetual 1-year stakes at the, and one ends, I'm going to restake this for 1 year. This one ends, I'm going to restake this for 1 year. You're not going to get a lot of the inflation that way. You're not going to get a lot of the yield if that's how you do it. That's why these staking ladders are so powerful. A lot of people don't bother to set it up because it's too much to think about. It's too difficult. That's where the HEX staking ladder NFT comes in. It makes it super simple. It's going to have a super slick UI, make it super easy for people to use. It doesn't create a new coin that competes with HEX. It enhances it because it makes it super easy to just deposit. Say you have 1 million HEX, you want to do it for 10 years. You're like, all right, I want paid yearly. You could choose 6 months, then it's going to make 20 stakes. Or you do it, if you want it paid every year, then you can make it 10 stakes and it'll do 100,000 each. And say you take out your yield and some principal at the end of the first one. After you claim it, it immediately then will stake for 10 years. And then the next year you have a 2-year stake coming out, and then it sends out the rest for 10 years. And then you have a 3-year that comes out after the 3rd year. And each year you're getting perpetually more and more yield from the system. And at the end of it, you're going to have rolling 10-year stakes or 15-year if that's what you went for. And so you'll have the most yield possible every year forever. So basically you just want to keep building up that ladder. And so the most successful people in HEX are the people who have built these long ladders or just staked a lot at the beginning, and they have benefited from all these airdrops and stuff for the people who have staked for so long. Like there's been so much free money given to people who just ended up staking HEX for a long time. You're like, oh, well, they don't get paid to the end. Well, all these other people just build stuff on top and give free stuff to these people. People getting all the free Hedron and other airdrops. That is just extra yield for people who are doing these staking things. Staking HEX has been immensely profitable in the past. I don't see that stopping. No financial advice on this channel. But the other benefits are this would be a huge HEX deposit for HEX. A lot of people would use this tool, I would think, because it would be so super cool to show off your NFT. It's like a personalized NFT. Although that would dox your wallet. I don't recommend showing people your stuff in crypto. But it would be cool to see them on the open market. You could be like, oh, this thing pays you every 3 months and is perpetual, like a 5-year rolling, increasing staking ladder. And so you'd have the liquidity, like it shows here. You'd be able to trade these NFTs that represent these staking ladders. Sometimes someone builds one that's, it's already been going for a few years and it has an older HEX share rate. Maybe it's at a discount for whatever reason. You can get that. And it literally is like buying a yield bearing asset because it's already set up. Like if you buy HEX, it's not yield bearing until you actually stake it. So a lot of people miss out on the best parts of HEX because they just see a ticker and they think it's like any other ticker and you just buy it and you wait. But really the best way to benefit from HEX is actually creating these staking ladders and selling some of the yield if you need it. If you don't need it, just roll it out in the future. Saving is good. It gives you options. Whenever you have a large store of, savings, whenever an opportunity hits, boom, you're ready and you can actually capitalize on the situation. This is just my kind of idea for a great way to encourage HEX buying and staking at the same time. Two birds with one stone. People want to get these yield-bearing NFTs that perpetually get better and better and just become these massive NFTs of yield into the future. Like, it doesn't create a new coin. Like, no one is super, gamifying the system. It's just people who want to set up yield-bearing crypto in a simple way that you don't have to track like 15 different things. You just put in a number of HEX that you've bought, so it pushes the price of HEX up. You create a bunch of stakes through one little UI that you use on the website. It pays you more yield depends how, it's also very personalized. So you could do it every 6 months, you could do it every 3 months, you could do it every 1 year. And the thing is, like, each year you're going to be getting paid more and more by this thing. And so that just seems like people aren't going to be able to get enough of this thing. They're like, oh my gosh, it just keeps paying me more and more every time. So you just keep people trying to buy these and create their own NFTs because they're seeing the huge benefits. I think there will probably be a cool diagram showing like the benefit of a HEX staking ladder versus using, just rolling 1 year stakes. And you compare them and you'll be like amazed at the benefits. And I think a lot of more people will understand the value of a HEX staking ladder. And since it's so easy to use and not confusing or annoying to use, like currently, if you want to make a HEX staking ladder, you gotta, buy a certain amount of HEX. That's the same as for both. But then you gotta, go to one of these websites, input one amount for like 1 year. And you're like, okay, then I'll stake that. Boom. Then I'll put in another one for another year, another transaction, stake that. All right, let's do another year, stake that. Another transaction. It just takes forever. You got to write down all of the different stakes and stuff like that. And if you're doing HEX native stakes, then it's going to be all tied to that one account and you can't move it, which is a downside a lot of people don't like. And, some people, I still think having some HEX native stakes is good for, it's like, I saw someone say this on Twitter and they didn't get much engagement, but I thought it was so good. I think I liked it. And it was, you can hit save game by basically using the stake function of HEX in your life, because no matter what, by the time that stake comes due, you're probably going to be up massive. And so it kind of saves yourself from yourself, because a lot of people in crypto, they'll buy something, they lose faith, they have weak paper hands, they'll sell it at the bottom, it moons the next cycle, they go, oh man, could have been a multimillionaire, why didn't I just hold it? If I would have just hold 10%, I'd have this much, or something like that. Staking HEX is like saving your game in crypto and in your life. So I thought that was pretty cool. And like HEX is only one of the only things in the world that can actually do that. And I think that's just amazing. And I think it'll bring a lot of hope to a lot of people, especially whenever, these HEX staking ladder NFTs possibly get more popular. I think circulating this video and getting it to the developers of, in the HEX community, I bet we could come up with something. We've got all types of, other perpetuals and tokens people in the HEX community have created. I don't see how this NFT one would be much more difficult, and it does not compete with HEX, enhances it, pays more yield, NFTs are tradable, seamless tracking, and that one NFT pays the yield. And so it makes it much more simple, and it creates this huge deposit of HEX constantly going into making these yield-bearing NFTs that are set up to pay perpetually for whatever amount of rolling years that person wants. That's the other great thing about this, is it's totally personalized to you specifically. You get to decide exactly how much HEX you want to put up, exactly when you want to get paid. Oh, do you want it every 6 months? Do you want it paid every 3 months? Just know that, or when you do get paid, that's your choice. You can choose to get paid every 2 years. You'll end up paying less in fees that way, because then you only pay a transaction every 2 years. Whereas if you do it every 3 months, you're paying a transaction every 3 months. But it's all up to your situation. You get to decide. You get to choose. And I just think that's very powerful, and people will really enjoy looking at their NFT and going, wow, look at this growth it's going to have in these next years. Like, it just keeps growing and growing, and accumulating. And I think it'll be like a cool thing people want to track themselves. We'll probably have like apps and stuff to track your NFT yield and stuff like that. And I'm sure we could attach some cool art to it. People just seem to love art. Why not attach art to a thing that actually bears yield and isn't, centralized as all heck, Because like a lot of these NFT projects out there, like the company or team behind it just like continually launch more, devaluing the rest. You got 100 of these whatevers, and then they're like, all right, now there's a shark version, a bear version, a dolphin version, and it's like, all right, we're kind of devaluing the value of my stuff. Even though they're slightly different, it's spreading all this economic energy across all these other things. I like the idea of this yield-bearing NFT that's still tied to HEX itself, and it's very personalized. You also have liquidity the whole time because you're able to sell your NFT if you want. People can see how much yield it's going to have, how it's set up, what's the share rate you got in at whenever you created it. If you're in a pinch, you actually don't have to, lose emergency end stake penalties or anything like that. I don't even know if you'd have that ability depending on how the contract is written and stuff. It's probably going to be removed, but that's why you're able to give that opportunity to somebody else. Maybe they'll buy it for a premium, maybe they'll buy it for a discount. Depends on the situation and an overall macro environment at the time, usually is what causes that. I thought I'd give everyone this cool update of a possible tool we might see in the future, because I don't think it would be that hard to create. I had the idea of a coin that would do a similar thing. Like we would have Hex ladder coin would be like, everyone would pool into this Hex ladder that's like a perpetual ladder, and it would just continually grow a Hex premium because of how much it generates. And so it's kind of backed by the amount of Hex it creates. But the thing with that is people would be like, oh, I'm just going to wait for the next ladder coin to come out. And then I just jump on that one because it has no premium right away. But the cool thing about ladder coin is it actually pays out, at whatever interval is set. And so you'd actually be you wouldn't be like locked into something that is dependent on a premium that you won't know or won't have any real payout until like 15 years later. I think that's how one of these perpetual coins is that like, well, there's really no real payout until years later. So you're like, it could have no value basically until the last day. Like people are just speculating and holding it long term. The premium can be very wild, I feel, on those ones, whereas like a perpetual ladder one that's paying out every so often would just be more ideal, because then the premium has to like snap down to like what's more realistic. It could even still be like, it could still have a good premium, which is good for people who get into it earlier. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a good idea to like get to have one of those, but the thing is like people can just perpetually keep making those, and then I feel like it's going to take away buy pressure from HEX itself, except for those limited time events of people buying a bunch to get into those coins. So how that works out long term, I don't think we want a lot of that buy pressure going into a bunch of these other side coins, even though the base comes from HEX. Like if someone just trades a bunch of other coin back and forth after it's been out for a while, there's no buy pressure for HEX. It's like already happened. It's good initially and then kind of sucks later. Whereas I think a tool like the NFT staking ladder would just be perpetual HEX deposit of coins. They go in and they don't come out. They go in, they don't come out, and you can't trade it. It's just HEX. You buy HEX and you use the tool or not. And then people get these awesome yield-bearing NFTs forever. That's my HEX staking ladder yield NFT video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Okay.